that the basic cloud terms are out of the way, we're going to get our hands on an actual AWS account. By the end, you'll have a usable admin account, your own server running in the cloud, and files hosted on AWS. I've spent the last 5 years doing and still learning about cloud and platform engineering on AWS. And I still set up new accounts exactly the way I'm about to show you. So I think it's best to start from there. Pop open your browser, head to aws.amazon.com, and let's hit create an account. You'll need an email, as usual, and a card on file. Even though we're aiming to spend nothing, the card is there for their insurance, in case you go over. Here's something that changed recently. AWS used to give new accounts 12 months of free usage. That's gone for new signups. Now you pick between a free plan and a paid plan. It hands you $100 in credits right away, and up to another 100 as you explore. I'll show you an example on how I got some of those later. So basically up to $200 to learn on. The important part for you, on the free plan, AWS does not charge your card. If you use up the credits or your time limit, the account winds down and you don't get a bill. But don't treat it as a permanent storage. Alright, now our new account has been created. It will direct us to the dashboard. Next, here's the single most useful habit a beginner can build. Go to billing, then budgets, and set a small budget. Say $5 or $10. I'll put mine at $15 with an email alert. On this free plan, you won't get charged anyway, but this tells you the moment anything unexpected starts adding up, and it builds the reflex for you when eventually you go paid. AWS will also email you as your credits run low. As a small bonus, setting a budget is one of the little tasks that earns you extra credits. So you're being paid to be careful. Lastly, security. And this is one of those settings I always make sure to remember to set up. The account you just made is a root user. That is your master key to everything you own on AWS. We're going to lock it away and barely touch it again. First thing, turn on MFA for the root user. That's the setting where you scan a code with your phone, and from then on, logging in needs your password and an authenticator. Do this now before anything else. Here's where you can find it. I have mine already set up, but I'll go through this on the next section. So your account's protected now, but you're still signed in as the most dangerous user in the whole account. Let's fix that before we build anything. When you use this root account for everyday work, it is like carrying your house's master key to the grocery store. Lose it once and someone owns everything. So we make a second user as a daily driver. This lives in a service called IAM, or Identity and Access Management. It's how AWS decides who's allowed to do what. For now, you need one idea from it. Make a user for yourself, give it admin permissions, and use that instead of the root. So, in IAM, create a new user. I like to force a password change when creating new accounts. Give it administrator access. On the next step, you'll see here you have a console sign-in URL. You'll need that when logging in using IAM accounts. It's how the backend knows to which main account it belongs to. Save that temporary console password real quick, then log out of root completely, and log back in using that console URL. But use your new admin account. So next, we'll put in a new password. From here on, this is you. Root goes in a locked drawer. Turn on MFA for this one too. Same phone routine as before. So let me show you that real quick. We'll go to the IAM section again to set it up. Click Add MFA, and it will direct you to the MFA configuration page. Set a name for it. I like to use an authenticator app, but you can use passkeys or other hardwares like YubiKey. To register, we'll just follow the instructions on here and grab 2 codes. The current one that shows up, and the next one after a minute, and that's it. You're good to go. You'll also hear 3 words thrown around in IAM. groups, policies, and roles. I'll give you a quick version. Groups are buckets of users who share the same permissions. So instead of me assigning policies for every IAM user that I create, I can just use this admin group and add these users to it. Policies are the documents that spell out what's allowed. Roles, on the other hand, are temporary permissions you hand to a service instead of a person. That's all you need today. We'll use them properly when there's a reason to. Right, you're on a lockdown account. Sign in as the safe user. Now let's actually look around the thing. So this is your console, the dashboard for all of AWS. First thing you'll notice is how enormous it is. AWS has over 200 services, and nobody memorizes the menu, including people who do this full time. The search bar on the top is how everyone gets around. Type what you want to use, like EC2, S3, or maybe what type of service you're trying to find, like a cluster or a container. Then go from there. On the top right, there's a region selector. A region is the part of the world your stuff physically lives in. Pick one near you and leave it there for now, because most things you create belong to a single region. Make a server in Singapore, and then go hunting for it in Virginia, and you'll swear it vanished. It did not. You're just in the wrong region, so always be checking your region to keep your sanity. One thing I'm deliberately skipping today is the command line, the way you drive AWS by typing instead of clicking. It's genuinely worth learning, but it deserves its own episode rather than a rushed 30 seconds here. So we'll do everything today straight from the console. Okay, let's talk about servers. It's where you'll usually put your application on to do their work. You got other options, but this is the basic one. From an AWS perspective, the service is called EC2. EC2 is a computer you rent by the second, running in Amazon's data center instead of on your desk. That's the whole idea, a virtual machine in the cloud. Normally, I would use this as a server for my web applications. I can also host a database in it, although, preferably, I'll use another service for that separately. I could also use this as a jump host so I can securely connect to another service or database, and many more. Let's launch one now. Search EC2, hit Launch Instance. Pick Amazon Linux as the operating system. For the size, choose the smallest instance the console offers, the one it marks as covered by your plan. Just a heads up, a lot of older tutorials will tell you to pick something called T2 Micro. That seems to be out of date, so I usually just pay attention to what I pick and pick the smallest available I find that has the free tier. Also, I'm picking Amazon Linux because it's tuned for EC2 out of the box, and the browser shell we're about to use works with zero setup on it. Ubuntu is a perfectly good pick as well, and you'll see it everywhere in the real world, but it needs one extra install step for the browser shell, and today I want to keep the friction at zero. When you're comfortable, try launching an Ubuntu instance and see what changes. When it asks about a key pair, go ahead and create one and download it. We won't need it today, but it's the key you'd use to log in from your own machine later, and it's good to have. So instead of wrestling with key files in terminals, select your instance. Hit Connect and choose EC2 Instance Connect. AWS opens a real terminal right in your browser, straight into the machine. So once you're in, type "Who am I?" to see who you are on the machine. You can also type "Uname A" to see what it's running. Install a little tool called HTOP and run it to watch the server tick. That's a real computer in the cloud and it's yours. Coming back to that key pair I mentioned earlier, the browser shell is the easy on-ramp, but the classic way to connect is SSH, using that key from your own computer. It's the method you'll want once you're scripting things or connecting from outside the console. For example, like using a CI/CD pipeline or using Ansible playbooks to maintain your servers. And it's a fundamental skill an employer will assume you have. It's just fiddly enough that it earns its own episode, so I'll cover it properly rather than rush it here. Now, the habit I keep reminding people to get used to before you go anywhere: terminate this instance. a running server draws down your credits the entire time it exists, even while you're doing nothing with it. You've seen what it does. You don't need it sitting there burning your free window. Just kill it, and your credit stays yours. Now, once you get used to this and you'd like to automate the spinning up and termination of these servers, leave a comment below if you're interested, and I can show you a way to make it easier with a bit of code. So EC2 was a computer you rent. S3 is where you put your stuff. Files like logs, images, videos, database backups, and many more. Think of it as an infinite hard drive that lives in Amazon's data center. Except you don't plug it in. You talk to it over the internet. AWS calls each thing you store an object, and the container you put them in a bucket. But don't overthink the vocabulary. Bucket equals folder-ish things you throw files in it. And the reason to care, even as a beginner, is the range of use cases it can solve. At the simple end, S3 is where a website keeps its images and downloads, so the main server doesn't have to lug it all around. At the serious end, when a company has mountains of data to analyze, they pile it all into S3 first and crunch the numbers on top of it. So from hosting cat pictures to powering a data pipeline, it can do so much. Alright, so let's make one. Start by creating a bucket, which is just a named container for your stuff. One catch, the name has to be unique across the entire planet, not just your account. So plain my files is long gone. Throw something random on the end. Now, safety. See these settings that blocks all public access? Leave it exactly where it is for now. By default, AWS keeps everything private until you deliberately open it. And that default is your friend. Once it exists, upload a file by dragging it into the console. That's all it takes. There's also a command line way to do this, and it'll show up in that CLI episode alongside everything else. One last thing before we move on. S3 can actually host a whole simple website by itself. Live on the internet, no server anywhere. It's a genuinely cool trick, but it's the one case where you deliberately turn off that privacy default we just talked about. So it deserves its own walkthrough rather than a rushed 30 seconds here. I'll cover it properly in its own short video. And unlike EC2, you can leave this bucket sitting there. Right, so in that cleanup habit, right now do a quick sweep. Is the EC2 instance terminated? Remember to be checking your regions. Any files in S3 you don't need? 30 seconds of tidying is what keeps your free window free. Make it a reflex every single time you finish a session. Or you can start writing scripts to automate this. So leave a comment below if you're interested in learning more about it. So far, these have been separate pieces. Next one, we'll wire them into a real shape, the classic 3-tier setup. A web layer out in front that users actually hit, your server doing the work behind it, and a proper database holding the data. It's the pattern most real applications are built on. And once you've seen it, you'll start spotting it everywhere. If this made AWS feel like something you can touch instead of something you only read about, leave a comment and a like. And I'll see you on the next one. Hope you learned something new today.